What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I dropped 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm going to keep it 100 with you.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
You're the guy who can't finish a sandwich. You think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go! All right, how about take two? What's up, guys? This is your boy EJ Stewart. You're watching 40 Days and Counting, where I do 2 live stream shows per day. One Tuesdays, typically 6 p.m. One Friday, 8 a.m. Obviously, this is not Tuesday at 6 p.m. It's not even Wednesday at 6 p.m. This is Wednesday around 6:45. We're doing this live stream, but I wanted to do one because I didn't do one yesterday. And once again, it says I have an error on X, which is highly annoying and frustrating. But you know what? I'm just gonna continue on without X today. I don't know what's going on. Second time this has happened. But this is your boy EJ Stewart streaming live on YouTube now, New Generation Media. Also streaming live, I believe, on Instagram. Make sure I got that right. Let me see here real quick. Yep, we are live on Instagram. Shout out to folks on Instagram. Action EJ. Really bizarre that X is not allowing me to stream live. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if that's a problem with X. That's why the first stream didn't go off. There also was no sounds. There was some issues going on. Technical difficulties from that regard, which is why there was a false start on the first stream, and then now a new stream came up. And I assumed that would have been fine to continue forward streaming on X and YouTube. I actually thought there was an issue I might have made editing the post, which is why maybe that was why the stream didn't work. But something's going on with X that's not allowing me to stream. I don't know what's going on or why. That's really unfortunate and really frustrating, obviously. So sorry to the folks who are on X who may not be able to see this. And I know I got a lot of viewers on X, so that's a little disappointing from my standpoint. But we're going to have a good show, fun show regardless. Again, this is EJ Stewart. What I was saying in the first stream, which had no sound because there was also other issues happening, there obviously was no show yesterday. Yesterday was my birthday. I kind of apologize for not actually putting out a message when I did my show Friday. I didn't even realize that Tuesday was going to come up and my birthday was going to come up on the day I normally do these streams. But I apologize for not putting up a message during the day. I meant to be like, oh, hey, guys, sorry, there's not going to be a stream tonight, so don't wait for me at 6 p.m. That was why there was no show on Tuesday night. And I kind of contemplated back and forth. Should I just wait till Friday and just come back as I normally do, and then next week start full back-to-back twice a week? But I was like, no. Let's see if we can get one out early. Let's see if we could do one before, the NFL draft happens, before more happens in the NBA playoffs. Because a lot has happened since the last time we spoke. And I didn't want to wait a whole week before you guys heard from me. So I wanted to come back, do another episode of 40 and Counting. So I'm so happy you guys are joining me on this night. Again, apologies to those on X who I guess aren't able to see me. Again, I don't know what's going on with X. But that was, again, the reason why there was a false start earlier was because I wanted to restart so my X followers could watch the show, but I don't know. X is not allowing me to stream live today. Don't know what's going on. Don't know why that is. I have to look into that after this show is over. But for now, we're going to keep the ball rolling and keep it moving because this is going to be, again, indeed a really fun show for you guys. And we got a lot to talk about because we're going to discuss everything going on in the NBA playoffs. We got some surprising results, to be honest. I said last week I thought this was going to be a postseason in the first round for the NBA playoffs. That was not going to be all that exciting. I was excited for it. I love playoff basketball, but I thought these series, while you may see good games, may not be so competitive when it comes to seeing a lot of 6 and 7 game series. And that has not been the case. I know obviously we're only, for most of these series only 2 games in, but there are a lot of competitive series, some that we did not expect. And then there are some surprising results from series that, quite frankly, haven't been as competitive as we thought. And we'll talk about that to start this show in a little bit. So, excited to talk about the NBA playoffs. Really excited to talk about the NFL draft. There's a lot going on, obviously, as we lead up into the draft. A lot of rumors, a lot of conversation about where certain guys be going, what trades could go down. So, we'll talk about that as well because I love the NFL draft. I'm excited to get this going tomorrow. It feels like it's been forever since we kind of really locked into NFL draft conversation post the Super Bowl. It's been a long 2.5 months, but here we are. Finally, we have the NFL draft right on our doorstep. That's happening tomorrow night. Big ramifications for both the New York teams. If you follow me, if you love my stuff on the fan, we'll talk about those teams, what they could be doing. Giants made a huge trade, and I mentioned the Dexter Lawrence stuff. Oh, I didn't mention it yet, but I do want to get into the Dexter Lawrence trade when we have that conversation about the NFL draft, because, again, there's a lot going on in the NFL. outside of the draft, other stories happened in the NFL. We finally got to hear from Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel, of course, was in this scandal that I think is accurate to say regarding his, I guess, interactions with Dianna Russini, I guess is the best way to describe it. These pictures that were published by the New York Post that showed him and former athletic reporter Dianna Russini at a Arizona adult-only resort. It just seemed like pictures that maybe you wouldn't typically expect to see from a sitting head coach and a reporter, particularly two people that were married as well. Even if they weren't married, it'd be weird to see. It was definitely, even adds a little more an additional level of awkwardness to see two married folks in these kind of pictures. They both denied anything going on between them. Dianna Russini has since resigned from The Athletic, in part because she didn't want to feed into any more of the narratives about the relationship with Vrabel and what was going on, because she said that they were untrue. So Mike Vrabel now had his chance to speak. I'll give you guys, let you guys know what he said, and let you guys parse through what he thinks, and I'll give you my thoughts on what he said yesterday. And then in the NFL, also, big news out of Dallas Cowboys. George Pickens. Get ready to know that hashtag, buddy, or that franchise tag, buddy. Like, that's what he's going to be playing on. According to Stephen Jones, who is executive vice president of the Cowboys, he says that George Pickens will not be signed to a long-term extension, that there will not be negotiations. He's going to play on the franchise tag, and that's just going to be that. So we got a lot to get to when it comes to the NBA. We got a lot to get to when it comes to the NFL. We'll also talk some DC stuff because DC released the trailer for Clayface today as well. So a lot to do, and we got really as much time in the world as we want here. 40 days and counting with your boy EJ Stewart, streaming live from multiple spots. Again, unfortunately, not as many spots as usual. Not on X today, so apologies to the folks on X. I did try. I restarted my stream and tried again to see if I could get it to work. X doesn't want me to stream live today. Don't know why that is. I'll have to maybe look at my software afterwards and hope that Friday will be better. I'm going to chug along here without X. So no X today, but I am streaming live on YouTube. So if you want to catch my show, check it out on YouTube, New Generation Media. You can find these episodes of all of our content, 40 Days and Counting, Orange and Blue Bloods, various different other shows that we do. New Generation Media is the YouTube channel. Also streaming live on Instagram, Action EJ. So if you're on Instagram and you love watching my content, you can't watch it the next day. If you're on Instagram, stay here. You can watch the entire show on Instagram. So that's another way to view your boy. So streaming multiple spots today, no X, but we are streaming live on YouTube, New Generation Media, and on Instagram, Action EJ. So let's get the ball rolling here, and I want to begin discussions with what's going on in the NBA playoffs. And I actually want to talk about this Lakers series. Which has gone in a way that I don't think anybody expected. I think everyone looked at the Lakers as a dead team walking after the injuries to Luka Doncic and to Austin Reeves with a core muscle injury, Doncic with a hamstring injury, all of this happening essentially right before the playoffs were to begin, putting both guys' status for this series in major doubt, especially Reeves, but even Luka Doncic as well. He's not played the first two games of the series, which was expected, and yet the Lakers lead this series over the Houston Rockets 2-0 after winning again last night. And Kevin Durant, who did not play Game 1, he suffered a knee contusion in practice leading up to this series. That allowed him to not play in Game 1. He showed up in Game 2. Had a red-hot start in terms of his shooting percentages in the first half. But throughout the entire game, and especially in the second half, had massive turnover issues. 9 turnovers in this one was a key part of this game. But the Rockets overall offensively just don't look right. They look broken. The Lakers defense has been stifling. And LeBron James now getting to play a more point guard kind of role in this team, along with Luke Kennard, who thought Luke Kennard would be running offenses in this situation. They've both done a great job. LeBron, is even when his shooting has been off, he wasn't a great shooting the ball from the field yesterday, but he's continuing to make plays for other guys. Luke Kennard has played awesome in this postseason. And now the Lakers sit in this series, shockingly, up 2-0 headed to Houston. Now, I won't sit here and say I think that the series is over per se, but I do think that, number one, what is painfully clear to me is Ime Udoka is being badly outcoached by J.J. Redick. And for all the crap that J.J. Redick gets for being the Lakers head coach, and there's a microscope, And it's not that he doesn't deserve some of the crap. I mean, I think that sometimes the way he talks to the media, the way he talks about his players, I don't think is the smartest way to go about it. I think he is a guy who will deflect a lot of blame. Like, there are things you can talk about with J.J. Redick. But you can't deny that the guy has been a pretty successful NBA head coach at this point in his career, to be only 2 years in. And coming into the series against a guy who people consider to be a elite NBA head coach, who's been to an NBA Finals, and you don't have Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, your two best players, and you find a way to get those 2 games at home with the defensive strategy that has been, again, stifling on Kevin Durant. They're not allowing him to not see multiple bodies coming off screens, and it's forcing him in some turnovers, and that's why he struggled, I think, as much as he did last night. He had 23 points, but again, 9 turnovers on 4 assists. The Rockets as a whole offensively just aren't able to really consistently get into a rhythm, which is why I question some of the decision-making from this coaching staff with Ime Udoka. Reed Shepard yesterday did not shoot the ball well, but he was 0 for 3, 11 minutes, and Ime was asked after the game, why no more Reed Shepard, considering he's one of your best shooters and best offensive players, and the team seemed to be struggling with offense. He said, well, we were playing good defense, so that's why I kept them out of the game. But yeah, but the name of the game is you got to score more points than the other team, and they were down. So at a certain point, they were going to have to get some consistent offense, or at least maybe relieve some pressure on Kevin Durant from having to make so many plays, and they did not. So I thought that was certainly questionable, and it's been, I don't know, it's because they haven't had enough tape on this version of the Lakers, but it is quite stunning to watch, again, Marcus Smart and Luka Kennard running so much point guard and running the team the way they have, along with LeBron, and being this effective. It's just, there's no excuse for the Rockets to be down 2-0 in this series. This is a terrible job by them. I think even without Kevin Durant in game 1, they probably still should have found a way to win. But okay, I understand you're probably shocked that he's not out there, and a shock that you don't have your best scorer. All right, well, in game 2, now that he's back, even if he's a little gimpy, you think, okay, with him even 75%, we should be able to beat a Lakers team that doesn't have Luka Doncic and Luka Kennard, and then you lose again. And again, Kevin Durant has 9 turnovers. This has been again a really shocking result in this series. Not one I expected at all. I think the Lakers, again, they deserve a lot of credit. I think their defense has been outstanding. Again, LeBron and Kennard and Smart have been great in terms of sharing the playmaking responsibilities, and they've played smart ball. You can certainly see there's great chemistry between LeBron James and Marcus Smart and Kennard, and they're playing a ton of minutes. Kennard played 42, Marcus Smart played 35, but they have been up for the task. I think what's been interesting about this Laker 2-0 start too is also what little they've gotten from their bench. They got 6 points from Jackson Hayes, and that was it. No one else from the bench scored. Everyone else out there was getting cardio. Jake LaRavia, 0 points. Jared in 16 minutes. Jared Vanderbilt, 14 minutes, 0 points. Bronny James got in for a 3-minute stretch. He scored 0 points and had a turnover. But again, I think it speaks to just how disappointing this start has been from the Rockets. I didn't think Tari Eason played all that great yesterday. And for the Rockets, it kind of all the teams, I think of the most disappointing starts to this postseason. I think that they're the team I think I point to the most as the most disappointing. This is a team that I said before when I did my predictions for who's going to win these series, each of these series. I said the Rockets better win in 5. I was like, there's no excuse for the Rockets not to win this series in 5 games with all the injuries the Lakers are having, and considering the Rockets came into this season considering themselves championship contenders. They lost Fred VanVleet, so you think, okay, maybe it's not as likely they win a title, but they certainly see themselves as a team that can make a deep playoff run. And again, you face the Lakers team looked dead on arrival, and also looked awful to end the season. They looked like they had no life trying to adjust to what life was going to be like without LeBron James and Austin Reeves. And to get punked the way they did in these first 2 games, you scored 94 points last night in the first game. I forgot how much they scored, but they also 98 points in game 1. You didn't even break 100 in 2 games against the Lakers. That screams to me there is a major adjustment to have to be made by Ime Udoka offensively in order to get this offense rolling. Şengün hasn't looked all that comfortable. He was terrible in game 1, and I thought, again, Udoka pulled the cord on Reed Shepard, I thought, way too fast. He played 36 minutes first night. Okay, he probably shot the ball too much. He shot 20 shots. Probably not ideal, even a game without Kevin Durant. But he pulled the cord on him and basically didn't go back to him. When, again, you're a team that's right now struggling for offense. And you got Josh Okogie playing a ton of minutes. Jason Tate playing a ton of minutes. So some of these guys that just aren't going to give you much offensively. And I guess the thought process was, well, we could just stick around with this Lakers team. They won't have enough offense to win in the end. The Rockets have enough good defenders where I think that you could find more than 14 minutes in a game for Reed Sheppard. And then when you have Kevin Durant struggling with so much of the playmaking and the turnovers, I think it's also additionally important that you have another guard out there to not allow him to have to consistently try to create offense for himself. So for a guy who's a very good coach, I think Ime Udoka's having a terrible series. I think J.J. Redick is coaching rings around him. I'll be very curious how this series shakes once it gets back to Houston. I think the Rockets are going to be playing, obviously, for the playoff lives, right? This game is going to be on Friday. If they lose the game, they lose the series. The series is absolutely over. So if you're the Lakers, I kind of wonder if maybe this is a, take your pedal off the floor kind of game where you feel like, all right, we got a lot of guys who are hurt. We've had 2 heroic efforts to win game 1 and 2. The Rockets are certainly going to come out like a house on fire. So I would expect the Rockets to probably handle business on Friday and at least make this a series and make it a 2-1 series. And then we'll start to then have conversations at that point about, what is the possibility of Luka Doncic returning or Austin Reeves returning. I think Reeves, right now the word is that he could reportedly return late in the first round of this series. So maybe Reeves comes in if there's like a game 6 or game 7, but Doncic unlikely. So I'm actually going to be very fascinated to see how the Rockets come out, because the only way I think the Rockets, they win the next game, absolutely still win the series. But I think the only way they ensure their season is going to end soon is if they lose the next game. So because no teams come back from down 0-3. And I think what's been a little problematic too about the Rockets, this is something that's been talked about a lot, really since the All-Star break, is just how Jekyll and Hyde they have felt in the second half of the season and just how disjointed they were. And I heard a lot of that conversation, but I kind of dismissed it. I kind of felt like, listen, second half of the season for a team that they've been to the playoffs last year. Now Kevin Durant's there. They had the weird thing with the burner account, but I didn't know really what to make of that. And then they started to get hot towards the end of the season, so I said, I think that was just whatever. I didn't really think much of it. This looks more damning. This looks more like a team that actually is having trouble figuring themselves out. A team that definitely doesn't feel very connected right now. So, man, Friday's going to be interesting. If you're the Lakers, again, I don't know if 41-year-old LeBron James is going to be putting pedal to the metal in a game where he knows this probably be the toughest game to win of the Lakers, of however long the series is going to be. A 2-0 lead going to Houston when Houston's going to be extremely desperate. That's probably going to be the hardest game the Lakers are going to have a chance to win. He's going to have to do it probably again without Doncic and Reeves. I would expect that maybe this is the one LeBron's like, I'm not going to go crazy to try to beat these guys in this game. But if they can, they at least get off to a good start and make things nervous for that Rockets fan base and that Rockets team. I don't like the way they feel right now. I don't like the basketball character I'm seeing from the Houston Rockets. Again, just a really terrible start to this postseason. And one thing I want to say, too, about this series is it is absolutely another testament to just how great LeBron James is as a basketball player. Like the fact that he was able to get these 2 games against all odds against a team that clearly has more talent than him. And I think I don't want to say it was an indictment on Kevin Durant, but I think it just speaks more to me just about like the canyon that exists between the caliber of player LeBron is and has been, and the caliber of player Durant is and has been. And I actually think Durant is a more talented player than LeBron James is currently. But in terms of being a winner, in terms of knowing what it takes to win tough games and get out of certain situations and to adapt to situations however they come, LeBron's been, no pun intended, the king at that. We've seen him play on different teams, different situations, and guys hurt, guys whatever, and still find a way to win, still find a way to put his team in advantageous situations. And Durant's been the opposite, is that if things actually aren't perfect around him, there's some kind of excuse. And that feels like the story of this series so far, is, Durant got hurt. I'm not trying to make a thing. He legitimately got hurt. He could not play in game 1, so I know he's not playing 100%. But that has also been the story, right? Is that he's somebody that breaks down. I was actually surprised at how healthy he was for most of the season. He got hurt, which is terrible. It seems like a freak thing in practice. And then on the flip side, LeBron, again, all the odds against him, he finds when they go up 2-0. So, we'll see how the series got to go. You got to win 4. It's not about winning 2. But I think if you're a Laker fan, you got to be pretty damn proud of your team and your organization, your head coach, and your star player. Because I think they have been highly critical of all three. They've been highly critical of the organization, highly critical of this team, and damn sure highly critical of LeBron James and JJ Redick. I think today you have to be pretty grateful for what those guys have been able to accomplish, because if they win this first round series, this would be a monumental victory for the Lakers, and then make the rest of the playoffs interesting. Because if you are able to then get Austin Reeves back for round 2, and you're potentially able to get Luka Doncic ready for round 2, if that's possible, I mean, you're playing the Thunder, so I don't feel good about your chances. But now you feel like, wow, we thought our season was over basically after that injury happened in OKC, and now, okay, at least we got our guys back, and now we got a shot. So this is a series I'm going to stay glued to. I'm fascinated by the results of this, and if things don't go well for Houston, I'm curious what happens there. Do they decide, hey, we'll run it back with Fred VanVleet back as our point guard and feel like, hey, we couldn't win because we didn't have our point guard, and that was that? Will they try to make an upgrade at point guard to get a better player than Fred VanVleet at that position? Or do they decide, man, Kevin Durant couldn't get us out of the first round even without Fred VanVleet against a Laker team that didn't have Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves? Do they decide if they want to move on from Kevin Durant? Like, there are a lot of different things, and Ime Udoka is going to be put right there on the platter as well in terms of, like, what happened, bro? Like, you couldn't win this series? For a team that I think people were just, I was one of them, just advancing them easily to the second round. Some very uncomfortable questions could come to fruition if this series continues to go where it's going right now. Lakers up 2-0 in that series. I want to shift gears and go to the East Conference real quick. Before I get to the East, actually, I do want to talk about also the great effort I saw last night from the Portland Trailblazers. Shout out to Scoot Henderson, 31 points. You know this is a series where he's going to have maybe a little something to prove, because this is, the series where all the talk for all season, but definitely this series has been about Victor Wembanyama's first playoff series. Number 1 pick in the draft. You may often forget, and Scoot Henderson, the way his career has gone so far, he maybe feels a little bit more like a trivia question than an impact star. Maybe who was the number 2 pick in the draft? Victor Wembanyama went number 1, and I think for some basketball fans, they may actually forget, because Scoot's been in Portland. It was not a good first few years, and this year is a lot better, but he's still kind of been more of a role player. Definitely hasn't distinguished himself yet as a future star. But man, again, he was dynamite last night. He's dynamite against some really good guards. So shout out to the Blazers. Big win last night in San Antonio. But of course the story was Victor Wembanyama with the concussion. So he goes to the floor, hits his shit on the floor, knocked out immediately. It was kind of scary to see it. Every time I see that replay, it doesn't look good. While was back to the back, they declare he's got a concussion, and that now becomes a series that now is in the balance, right? I mean, Portland actually was down still, even with Wemby out of that series. They were able to battle back, and Henderson and Denny made plays, and then sure enough, they were able to come away with a win. Now you go to the Moda Center, and I thought the NBC broadcast, Melo was on it. Like, Portland in the playoffs, maybe the owner doesn't want to give any T-shirts because he's a cheapskate, but he's a broke boy. But that still typically is a very tough crowd. That is not an easy place to win, and they may have to do it now without Victor Wembanyama. So look out below in that series. And not to say that the Spurs can't still win the series even without Wemby. I think they have that much talent where they could win this series even without Wemby. But this is a team with their first go around as a group in the playoffs, and their all-world first-team NBA, All-NBA player is not going to be available, at least for the next game, I would assume, considering the rules with the concussion protocol in the NBA. And given how bad the concussion looked, I think that he might not be ready for either of those games in Portland. Look out below, man. That's a series to now pay attention to. Is one that I think I had the Spurs winning in 6 because, like I said, it simply is just never that easy for a team in their first go-around through the playoffs. I did not think an injury would make this particularly hard. But I do think for a series I thought was going to be competitive anyway. Now I'm like, this feels more like a toss-up. So keep an eye out on that Portland Spurs series now that Wemby's out with the concussion. Hopefully he comes back soon. Of course, he's obviously one of the faces of the NBA. But that series now is in a whole different situation because of what happened with Wemby. and the situation with the concussion. But I want to shift gears here again before I just want to make sure I gave that shout out to Portland because they were one of the other games last night that was a big win. But I wanted to talk about also what's going on over in the Eastern Conference. So we got two of the really all three powers. The Magic are playing right now, or they're about to tip off. They haven't already. But two of the Eastern Conference powers find themselves in surprisingly competitive series right now. Both teams losing game 2 in kind of shocking fashion. So last night it was the Celtics against the Sixers in the first round. Sixers just took it to them. Celtics kind of fell into the trap that they fall into when they don't shoot the three ball well. How else do they generate offense? And they kind of just don't. They don't even try to do anything else. They just keep shooting threes. Three ball was not falling last night, and that was trouble because Maxey and Edgecombe had it going. I don't know what these guys were doing in game 1. They both looked lost, and the whole team just looked non-competitive. It was a really uninspiring performance in game 1. Made you feel like this could be a 4 or 5 game series. And then game 2, the whole team, especially those two guys, man, they came out with a level of focus and an aggression that was not matched by the Boston Celtics. And they took care of business. Edgecombe was dominant for 3 quarters, and then Maxey took him home in the 4th. So now you got a tie series here. Celtics, Sixers now 1-1. Also, for a little further south, at MSG the night before, Knicks blow a 14-point second-half lead, a double-digit fourth-quarter lead to the Hawks, who walked them down thanks to some clutch shooting from C.J. McCollum. And now you got a 1-1 series between the Knicks and Hawks, where the Knicks looked like they were cruising their way onto being up 2-0 in both of those in that series. So Celtics, Knicks both tied 1-1 in their respective series. I think it's surprising to see them in this spot, given I think maybe more people were more concerned about the Knicks. I don't think anyone was concerned about the Celtics, especially with Embiid out for the Sixers. And that is actually kind of where I pause for the Celtics. I kind of in my mind, I'm kind of not expecting Embiid to play. I don't know why. I just feel like there may have been a little more said about kind of where he stood rather than kind of where it's been, which has been like he's not been at all cleared to play. This was according to multiple reports before the game. Embiid has entered a new phase of his recovery process. ESPN Sean Spring said Embiid process has 2 parts: recovery from surgery and doing rehab work that will allow him to return to action. Embiid poorly began strength and conditioning portion of the process on Monday. So he's starting to run and stuff, but I don't think he's going to play game 3. I think they're probably expecting him not to come back for at least a game 6 or game 7, which is why if I'm the Celtics, I think you got to win these next 2 games in Philly, man. I just don't think you want this series to extend any longer than it has to be to give the Sixers any chance for Joel Embiid to make his presence felt in this series. Because if he does, I think this series becomes an entirely different situation. I've been pretty consistent that I thought Philly was a very dangerous team because of Joel Embiid's presence. I think that they've been different when he's been out there. When he's out there and they can combine his offensive repertoire with the speed that Maxey and Edgecombe provide, they are an extremely tough team to guard. So if they are serious about trying to get Embiid back, though I'm not 100% sure they are because of the risks that go into playing with his health in that way. If they are, again, I think you want to try to make it harder on them to make that decision, a tough decision for whether or not they want to throw him out there. If this series is tied 2-2, it's in the balance going back to Boston. Now it's a best of 3. Embiid may be able to force his way and say, listen, man, it's 2-2, it's best of 3. Like, I can help us win one of these games. Like, get me out there. This 3-1, I think the Sixers will be less inclined to want to risk his health and throw him out there. That's why I think if you're the Celtics, getting game 3 and winning it in dominant fashion, I think is going to be important. And I think it's the same for game 4. I don't think this situation would say, okay, we're content going back to Boston with a split. I think they need to try to create some distance from them in Philly because the more Embiid's health lurks now in a negative way for Boston. It was lurking for Philly because it was like, how quickly could they get him out there? Because I wasn't sure if they could win a game against Boston without Embiid. Now they got one. They got one, and it also wasn't like a loss where they like stole one. Like they outplayed the Celtics for most of that game. Now they got a lot of confidence. Now you feel like, okay, maybe they can get one at home, but now it's a different series. So very fascinating to see how the Sixers-Celtics series shakes out. And then for the Knicks, who will play tomorrow against the Hawks. What a disappointing effort that was for the Knicks in Game 2. I mean, that was a game that I did not have much concern about them finishing. Like, I'm watching the game. I'm actually reading the book. I'm reading Blood in the Garden while I'm watching the game in the commercial breaks. I just feel like the Knicks are going to take care of business. And slowly but surely, you saw the team's defense deteriorate. But I think what's becoming another concern for them is what's supposed to be their superpower, which is crunch time, because they have Jalen Brunson. It's starting to feel more like a weakness. At least it did in that game. And it has during certain parts of the season when you see this thing happen over and over again, when the Knicks get into Jalen Brunson, pound the ball, and not running any kind of offense. Not running any any complex sets or anything to get him open. They're requiring him to do everything for himself, which then in turn doesn't allow him, or he doesn't have the wherewithal to realize he has to also then look for others while he's doing that. It can't only be him. I think he took 8 shots in that fourth quarter. I think the next guy, closest guy, was I think OG at 3. I want to say. When you shoot 3 for 8, that's not good enough. Like, if you told me you're 5 for 8 or 6 for 8, I could take that. But 3 for 8, and everyone else basically is not getting involved. That's not good. You're not going to win playoff games that way. So the turnovers were high, and that was a problem. I think the lack of offensive execution was a problem. And then Jalen Brunson as well. And I said this on Orange and Blue Bloods, and I'll say it again here. You got to take the challenge defensively, man. Like, any Knicks fan will tell you Jalen Brunson is a godsend. He's a king of New York. He's all those different things. And it's not that he isn't. With that comes a high standard. And for Brunson to get just absolutely cooked by C.J. McCollum the way he was, it's just unacceptable. And it cannot happen. The greats who aren't the greatest defenders, and it happens to a lot of different guys throughout their career, they find a playoff series or a matchup that they realize, oh man, I got to really improve my defense if I want to keep winning championships or win my first championship. They find a way. I watched Steph Curry have problems with Kyrie Irving in a series and them lose a 3-1 lead to the Cavs, and the conversation coming out of it being Steph Curry's defense was abysmal. He wasn't making shots, that didn't help, but it was abysmal, and Kyrie was having his way. And he had to show that he could at least be respectable defensively so teams couldn't hunt him. And then, guess what? He did. He found a way to become respectable. And now, you don't really talk about Steph's defense because it's like, he's fine. Like, you could try to hunt him, but it's like, it's not like this crazy advantage it was earlier in his career. Even the taller guys, like Nikola Jokic, same thing. Oh, Nikola Jokic you can't give him MVP because he doesn't play defense. And they lose in the playoffs, like, yeah, because he's not a two-way player. And then that run, they went to the NBA Finals. How many big defensive stops did he make in that series against Miami? In the subsequent series before that to get to the NBA Finals against the Lakers, he was awesome defensively. He like, you find a way to make plays. Same thing with Dirk Nowitzki. I can go on and on. There's so many different guys in different parts of their careers who have won championships. Some of the guys that aren't great defenders that had to answer the call, being like, you got to find a way to make an impact defensively if your team's gonna win, or at least not be a liability. We're no longer at the time where we can just like give Jalen Brunson a pass for being as terrible as he was against C.J. McCollum. That was unacceptable. Lost him the game. If he can get a couple of stops on McCollum doesn't get going the way he does, the Hawks had nothing else going offensively. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's been terrible in the series. Jalen Johnson, I think, has been very underwhelming. I don't think the Hawks played that well. Like, they played their B- game and find a way to still win at Madison Square Garden because C.J. McCollum played his A++ game. Everyone else, I think, was at a C. So that was, and then to be fair, they played good team defense, they played with grit, and they played with heart. Like, that's the one thing you can't take away from the Hawks. They played well. I mean, they played hard. They played with a playoff effort, which is why they won. But I'm laying a lot of blame on Brunson here because I just think that to play that poor defense, to shoot the ball the way he did, which was not well, to turn the ball over, and then also not get Karl-Anthony Towns involved. I mean, it was a failing effort from him. Very surprising. It was kind of shocking. I think of these teams, when you look at the Celtics and Knicks, which team I'm most concerned about, I'm probably a little more concerned about Boston than I am about New York. Well, more because of the opponent. I think the way they played, I'd be more concerned about New York because I would be concerned about whether or not, like, is this going to be a problem for them, not just this series, but even if they do advance. Like is this what their offense is late in games? Or is this something you have to just bake in? That there are going to be several games, key games, where they just forget that Karl-Anthony Towns is on the team, or Jalen Brunson becomes a sieve defensively. Whereas with the Celtics, I think it's probably more likely they don't shoot as badly as they did in game 2. But the problem again becomes which opponent I think poses more of a threat to their other team. McCollum was great, and he got a lot of easy looks. I don't think he'll shoot the ball as well as he shot those first 2 games at MSG. I think he's a great shooter. He was unconscious. I don't know if he's gonna be shooting like that again. And again, it feels to me, as long as the Knicks don't like change up their defensive strategy too much or overhaul in a major way, it feels like the moment's been big for Alexander Walker and Johnson so far. And if they're gonna keep playing the way they're playing, I don't think the Hawks got a shot. Maxey and Edgecombe don't seem like it's too big for them. It does not feel like it's too big for them. And if the big fella has any chance to make his way back into that series, Celtics are going to be in for a tough one. Shocking start to the NBA playoffs in several different rounds. I mean, Nuggets, T-Wolves, that's going to be competitive. First game was competitive for 3 quarters, and Nuggets pulled away. But then, fourth quarter of the second half of the last game, T-Wolves, they play those guys well. I'm not surprised that's a close series. I'm not surprised that the Thunder, we'll see what they do in game 2. I'm not surprised they destroyed Phoenix in game 1. None of those series were that surprising, but those 4 that I've highlighted, did not expect to see how those series are checking out so far. I'd be curious to see how things shift as we get away from the home court advantage teams and take this one on the road to the lower seeded teams hosting some home playoff games here. NFL drafts tomorrow. Really excited. Love the NFL draft. Is why it's one of my favorite times of the year. I would say this is the best part of the sports calendar, because not only do you have, again, we're locked into NBA playoff matchups and NBA playoff games, but then we're also have great NFL storylines to follow. And, of course, with the NFL draft tomorrow, people are putting out kind of their final mock drafts. I was kind of getting a view of them before I started this show. And a couple of things that I will see. Well, number one, I think what's interesting to look into is going to be the what the New York teams do. And I don't mean to make this a New York bias kind of thing, but both the Jets and the Giants have a quarter of the first 16 picks in this draft. Jets have 2 and 16. Giants have 2, 5 and 10 because of the trade they made sending Dexter Lawrence to Cincinnati, which I talked about on WFAN over the weekend, but I actually haven't talked about here in New Generation Media. I'll say something on this real quick. I thought this was a great move for the Giants. I think Dexter Lawrence has been a great player. He's been a great player. He's been a great New York Giant. I don't know what was wrong with him last year, but I think maybe we know now that he just wasn't happy with the money he was getting. But he just was not the same guy. I thought his leadership was lacking, I think, at times, but he could have made things easier for the team or been a voice of reason. He seemed disinterested in being that. What's going on with Russell Wilson in the quarterback situation? I don't know. How do you feel about Jackson Dart beginning a new starting quarterback, ushering a new era of Giants football? I don't know. Like, all these different things. Brian Daboll gets fired. How do you feel? I don't know. Like, it just, like, Shane Bowen gets fired. How do you feel? He just had no answer for anything. And this wasn't to me like, oh, it's smart for player to make sure that they don't give anything to the media for like bulletin board material or to make more headlines. To me, he actually was making headlines by being so dismissive. It did not strike me as a guy how a leader or how a team captain would respond to these massive stories that were happening with the team last year. For a team that was bad, it seemed like there was a lot going on there. And then you hear all the stuff happening behind the scenes with guys missing meetings and missing walkthroughs and stuff. It just, Dexter Lawrence, I thought, had worn out his welcome. I don't think he wanted to be there anymore. And on the production on the field was lacking. He was not the disruptive all-pro guy that he was the year prior. So I was like, and he wanted more money? I wasn't convinced that giving him more money was the right move. So the fact that the Giants got a top 10 pick for him and now have picks 5 and 10, I think puts them in a really prime position here to do a lot of different things. Number one, they could stay at 5 and 10, and I think they could have the pick of the litter of how they want to start this rebuild for this team. If it means getting 2 defensive guys, one, maybe on the edge or maybe an interior guy with a later pick, moving from 10 down or staying at 10, they could do that and draft a star offensive player at 5. They could draft 2 defensive players. They could also, if they need to get ahead of a team like Tennessee, who may want someone like Jeremiah Love, someone they're interested in, they could trade next year's first round pick to get ahead of what's the name if they have to, if they want to get ahead of Tennessee, and say, hey, we'll take our 2 first round picks this year and sacrifice our first round pick next year because we really want to get Jeremiah Love. There's just options on the table. The options would be much cheaper than paying Dexter Lawrence the $30 million that he wanted from the Giants, which they weren't going to give him. So I think that this was a lawsuit for the Giants. I don't love it for the Bengals. Now the Bengals have had a disastrous run drafting. They tried to draft defense for the last 4 or 5 years. They haven't gotten anybody good, basically. So this was them being like, and then they've had issues signing guys. Like they had with Shamar Stewart last year, which was crazy. I think they were like, let's just get out of the rookie bag and try to get a star defensive player here who we know can make an impact, considering we've been a terrible defense. So they're taking the flyer on Dexter Lawrence. I don't know if he turns around their entire defense, one that's already lost Trey Hendrickson. So I don't feel great about the Bengals' returns here to trade for a defensive tackle who is good but is approaching 30 for a top 10 pick. Seems kind of crazy to me. I wouldn't have done it. I didn't like the move. So now the Giants sit there at 5-10. They're going to be an important team to watch, but the Jets also will be an important team to watch with 2-16 as well. All the word, because we know number 1 is going to be Fernando Mendoza going to Las Vegas. It feels like a lot of the mock drafts I'm seeing, despite some of the hullabaloo last week about maybe Arvo Reese being the guy, because they actually canceled a meeting with David Bailey, which seemed odd because there was so much momentum going towards Bailey. It seems like maybe that was a smokescreen because now a lot of those same mock drafters are back onto David Bailey from Texas Tech being the number 2 pick in the draft to the New York Jets. And I'll be honest, I feel a little more comfortable with Bailey than I do with Arvo Reese. I guess Arvo Reese is probably going to be considered the more upside pick. The Jets have just... They've had problems. First of all, I think a lot of guys they've been drafting have been kind of upside picks defensively. And they just have had problems finding someone who can consistently get to the passer. I don't know if drafting an off-ball linebacker with pass rushing capabilities and potential that they could coach up. I don't know if I'd take that risk. Alvaro Reese is an amazing athlete. He is a very good football player. I do wonder if he's kind of a tweener, where you kind of end up not knowing what he is. Is he a pass rusher? Is he a linebacker off ball? Is he playing inside or outside? He might just be just an athlete. He might just be just a football player. But I know what the Jets have particularly needed. They've needed someone who gives them a real pass rush pop. Will McDonald's had flashes, but nothing consistent. They got rid of Jermaine Johnson because he's had flashes and then got injured and never really quite found his form last year. They certainly need some depth at edge. I think David Bailey is unblockable, basically. I think he's been an awesome player. I probably prefer someone like Ruben Bain. I think Ruben Bain's the best pass rusher in this draft. But with the Jets going to a 3-4 alignment, I don't think Bain makes sense as a 3-4 outside linebacker. I think he's definitely a 4-down lineman type guy. So I don't think he would have made sense. So with what they're trying to do, Bailey and his size profile certainly can fit as a 3-4 outside linebacker. I think he has the versatility to cover in the moments he has to and be adequate. I think Bailey is a fine potential guy to go there at 2. The rest of the draft gets interesting because I think, where Arizona goes and whether they stay at that pick, I think is going to be a big topic of conversation. Do you stay at 3? Do you try to dangle that pick for someone that maybe sees it as an opportunity if the Jets do pass up on Reese to say, hey, we could get Reese? Or maybe maybe this fight between the Giants and Titans over Jeremiah Love becomes a thing. And maybe you start dangling that pick to those 2 teams and say, hey, what do you guys want Jeremiah Love? Maybe make a trade and we'll make something happen. Because I don't think they need Jeremiah Love. I don't think they're going to be in the market for a running back. So the number 3 I think is going to be a very fascinating one. Just on some guys that I've been circling as guys that I think are going to be interesting to watch in terms of where they go. Very curious about what happens with Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs, to me, is one of the best players in college football last year. He's been one of the best players for several years now. He's awesome talent. I think he's going to come in the NFL and be a star. I don't know if the positional value will allow him to go as high as he should. Like Mel Kiper right now has him as a number 6 overall player, which seems about right. I can make a case he's a top 5 guy here. But he is a safety. And I'm not sure if teams are going to be running to draft him maybe in the top 5 or even the top 8 where he sits as a safety. So I think there's a chance that a team, maybe the Giants, who has 2 bites at the apple, they could have someone like Caleb Downs fall to their lap for a team that has had major problems with their safety position. They've had problems everywhere in the secondary. They tried to give a lot of money to Javon Holland to solve it last year. That didn't quite work. Sonny Styles could fall, Caleb Downs could fall right into their lap, and that would be something to see. So I'm very curious about Caleb Downs. I'm very curious about the wide receivers. Who's the first one to go? Because I think there's not a lot of consensus about who the best receiver in this draft is. I think there are like 5 guys, maybe 6, maybe Casey Concepcion, maybe late first round, but 5 guys I think considered possible first round guys. I don't think there's a lock that even 4 guys get drafted in the first round. But there are teams that certainly need receivers. So what's going to happen? So who is going number 1? Is it Jordan Tyson from Arizona State, who I think probably has the most natural talent given size, speed, profile? But I think there's some question marks about his toughness, question marks about, I think, some of his after the catch abilities, in my opinion. So I think there's some question marks. I think Mekhi Lemon, who's probably the least impressive in terms of athletic profile. He's only 5'11", but is the most competitive, the toughest, and the guy who feels like your ultimate foxhole guy, even though maybe he was a little weird in his pre-draft combine interview. So I don't know what he was like with the teams, but he certainly was weird in his press conference. So maybe that's a question mark with him. And then we got Carnell Tate, who probably is the most accomplished of the group, but how fast is he? And also, how much was he a product of playing across from what's the name, Jeremiah Smith, who we know gets so much attention, and teams were just gonna live with one-on-one coverage with Carnell Tate. You could not say we're gonna just put our receivers on an island with Jeremiah Smith unless you wanted to get destroyed, and I guess some teams did. But Tate, for as good as he was and as impressive as he was, the physical measurables in terms of like his 40 time stuff didn't really wow you. And then the production was really good, but you just wonder with sometimes question marks about competition in Big Ten defenses last year, and then just the nature of the squad and him being on the team that had a supernova who could very well be the number 1 pick in the draft next year in theory with Jeremiah Smith. Is it possible that this was just a guy who benefited playing next to one of the best receivers college football has ever seen? And that's not an understatement, or that's real. So I'm very fascinated. I don't know. I'm wondering how early do these guys go? Who's the first to go? There's no consensus. I've seen some mocks that have still had Carnell Tate being the first guy. I've seen some mocks that have had Mekhi Lemon. I've seen some mocks that had Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. Where's Omar Cooper fit in all this? Does he have an opportunity to go ahead of any of these guys? Because I think he has a lot of fans in the NFL. I think people like his toughness, like his ability as a slot receiver. So he's someone to pay attention to. So I'm really excited about what's going to happen with the wide receivers in this draft. I think that's going to be a major question mark. In terms of thinking about the draft order, I'm just pull up the draft order real quick, and hopefully I can show you guys draft order here too, so we kind of look together at Tankathon, if it will allow me to. Let's see. There are multiple teams here with multiple first-round picks. I'm going to move this over and see if I can share this with you guys. Multiple teams this year with multiple first-round picks, which is going to make, I think always makes for a more fun draft because now you have a opportunity potentially for some wheeling and dealing that you don't typically see. So if I can share my screen, which I'm trying to share right now, let's see if it'll work. I've not tried this in a while. System in private, I don't know what's going. Say allow. Hopefully that will fix whatever it's asking me to do. All right, I said allow. Oh, it's there, but it's like all weird. How do I make this bigger? You see it there though. See this. I haven't done this in a little while, so that's probably why. Zoom to app window. Is that gonna work? No, that didn't work. All right, I'm gonna. You see it on the corner there, but it's not as big as it's supposed to be, which is weird. Primary display, maybe? Is that what I need to do? No. Sorry about that. That's not working out the way I wanted to. But I could just look at the draft order from here. So again, you got Vegas 1, Jets 2, Arizona 3, Titans 4, Giants 5, Cleveland 6. Cleveland's an interesting team in terms of where they stand. It feels like they could go anywhere. They're a team that's kind of a blank slate. Offensive line's been a major problem. So are they the team where one of the tackles goes early? I saw one mock draft. I want to say it was Topic Shea, which was a little surprising. But apparently, Caden Proctor from Alabama's been slotted there, or at least he's been linked to that team for a while now. I've not seen Caden Proctor on a lot of big boards ranked any higher than 10. So if that is true, and they are willing to draft him at 6, that would probably be the first shock of the night for people who don't really follow closely the mock drafts leading up into the draft, because Proctor's a big-time name. He was a huge recruit coming out of high school. There was a big question mark whether he'd go to Iowa or Alabama. He was at Alabama, then Nick Saban left, and then he transferred to Iowa, then he transferred back to Alabama. It was all a weird thing. Kalen DeBoer has used him in very creative ways. He's given him the ball at times. He's had him as a lead blocker. He's done all. Caden Proctor's a great athlete, but I think there have been some questions about maybe is he a guard, is he a tackle, what does he play? I've been higher on him, I think, than maybe some of these big boards have been. So, Tom Monken is his first draft. Him taking a chance on Proctor at 6 would be definitely a storyline to follow. An interesting one at that, but the one I think I'm definitely curious to see if it plays out that way. Washington's going to be at 7, New Orleans 8, Kansas City is 9. Kansas City is one of the teams with 2 draft picks in the first round, because they will have also the Rams' first round picks. So they have 9 and 29. Are they a team that potentially tries to move up or packages one of these trades for a player or anything like that? They're, I think, a team certainly to follow in this one. Then you got, again, Giants at 10, then Miami at 11, Dallas at 12. Dallas, I think, a team to look at as well. We'll talk about them in a second. Then Rams 13, Baltimore 14, and then Tampa 15. Then you get to the playoff teams. Jets 16. They have the pick from of course, the Titans. The Colts in the Sauce Gardner trade. Detroit, Minnesota, and then that's where you get the playoff teams at Carolina starting at 19. So I'm curious, man, what's going to happen with this upcoming draft. There's a lot of different spots, a lot of different things to see here. I didn't get to my comments. I didn't even see the comments here. My bad. Jesus 2159, happy Wednesday. What's up, Jesus? Good to see you, man. I assume you're Jesus. Again, the second time I've assumed you're Jesus and not Jesus. You could be Jesus. You could be like Jesus Shuttlesworth. I don't know, but I'm calling you Jesus here. Shout out to you. Thanks for the happy Wednesday word. Shout out to my guy Rod Ray. Happy birthday to the homie and to the dad who both we only care about the draft right now, and the Lakers can kick rocks. So he was already tired of me talking about the Lakers to start the show. Listen, it's the NBA playoffs. The NBA playoffs, and it's LeBron James. So yeah, we started the Lakers. I think that was not draft is tomorrow, so we have a day in between, so that's fine. Rod Ray knows a lot about the NFL draft. I'm actually curious if he has any hot draft takes and he wants to drop into the chat. I would appreciate it. Yeah, let me see. I also maybe want to give you guys some players that I really like coming into this upcoming draft here. I mentioned Mekhi Lemon's been a favorite of mine for a while. That's the wide receiver from USC I was talking about. There's questions about where he will go. It feels like people inside the NFL love this guy too, which makes me feel good. I like it when my feelings about a guy that I've had since like September, and I was talking about Mekhi Lemon on the Maggie and Perloff show, then I guess validated by NFL observers. Now those guys get things wrong all the time too. We see guys who think some guys gonna be best things in sliced bread, and they end up stinking. So does not mean at all that I'm right, but at least I like that my mindset was in the right place of targeting certain guys, being like, that guy's a player. Mekhi Lemon has certainly been one of them. I'm very curious what happens with my guy Ruben Bain from Miami, man. Like, the story of the draft in many ways has been this guy having very tiny arms. Doesn't matter. Doesn't mean he shouldn't go as high as he maybe his draft profile and his stats suggest that he should, considering the dominant player he was. I will say this. I would draft Ruben Bain 2 or 3. Like I that's how I feel about him. Now I could definitely be biased. I'm a Miami Hurricane fan for sure, and I've watched Ruben Bain's growth as a player since he was a freshman. But I just know the impactful player he was on the field and the leader he was on the team, and the way he approaches the game and the violence with which he dominates his matchups. And I just have a hard time seeing that many defensive players better than him in this draft. That's just how I view him. So I love Ruben Bain. I feel like he's a guy who could potentially be a steal in this upcoming draft. So I'm very high on him. I mentioned I like Caden Proctor, and I think he's been kind of underrated. I like Omar Cooper as well from Indiana, a guy I mentioned earlier. I think he's been a little underrated. I'm a big fan of his. Also curious about these interior defensive linemen because this is not a draft where interior defensive linemen are slide to go high. So what is a Peter Woods? What is a Caden McDonald? Another one of my faves in this draft. Where do those guys go? Do they go earlier to maybe a team that has to reach because they want to fill a hole, or do they, as run stuffing defenders in a game where maybe stopping the run is still important, but not as important as it was in the past? Those guys stay where they've been slotted, which is somewhere between 25 and 30 or 35, right? So those are some of the big storylines that I have coming out of this draft. I can't wait for tomorrow, man. One other guy I'll give you as well, another Miami Hurricane to watch though, is Keontae Scott. I know I guess he's a nickel corner, and maybe that's why he's not slated higher. This guy is a football player. This guy is a guy I want in my foxhole. I think he is a great competitor. He's an awesome blitzer, and he ran a true 4.3 at the at his pro day. So we know the speed is transitional. Maybe he's not traditional outside corner, so maybe that's why there's not as much value for him as being a first round pick. But the way, as important as nickel backs are in college in the NFL at this point, I just think that I'm surprised that he's still not getting better looks in terms of being a first round guy. I also like Zachariah Branch from Georgia. He feels like the kind of guy that there's always an prospect, like a guy that who was like a all-world high school guy and then was like a college star, but for some reason we didn't take him seriously as a draft prospect. We say, oh duh, and then he becomes a great NFL player. Something tells me Zachariah Branch is that guy. He's gonna, I know he's 5'8", I know he's kind of a gadget guy, but he is so dangerous with the ball in his hands. He's, I think, gonna maybe be better in the NFL than he was at Georgia, where I think their offense was kind of mad last year. I just feel like you're gonna get him in a McVay or a Shanahan situation, and we're gonna be like, oh duh, this guy is one of the best game breakers in college football. Why wouldn't he go to a good team and change the world for them and be a dangerous threat? He's my oh duh prospect, where I've seen him slotted 3rd round, and I'm like, ugh, he's gonna go somewhere and light it up. I really do feel that way. I love the draft, man. Love this time of the year. Certainly can't wait to see how things end up shaking out. First round will be tomorrow, and then you got rounds 2 and 3 on Friday, and then you got the rest of the draft, the rest of the weekend on Saturday. I'll say one thing. I was telling my brother this. Maybe this is a hot take. I don't love that the draft is 3 days. I kind of prefer. I don't know how it was, or it's not that I don't prefer it was 3 days. That's not necessarily true. I think it should be more than one round on day one. I just feel like it doesn't tell enough of a story about what's going on. To me, if you're a Raider fan, okay, round 1 happens. Okay, you got Fernando Mendoza. You still don't know if he had a good draft. In theory, I guess if Fernando Mendoza is becoming a superstar, the rest of the draft doesn't maybe even matter. But I think I want to be able to extrapolate a little more from the draft than just looking at one round. I don't think you can. It doesn't tell the story at all. There were plenty of teams. I think a lot of people thought the Browns were having a great draft last year until the next day. They were like, oh, right, the Browns did a great job making that trade and getting out of the Travis Hunter pick and the conundrum of how they're going to try to play him on both sides of the ball. They just let someone else make that decision. And then they got all these draft picks in return. And then days 2 and 3 happen. Wait a minute, what? They drafted 2.2 running backs and 2 quarterbacks? They're the Browns. Excuse me, we gave all this praise the day before. What do you think was going to happen the rest of the time? So I say that to say, selfishly, in terms of being a draft and NFL observer, I'm like, round 1, it's I don't know. It's like watching the first 15 minutes of a show. I don't know. You don't really know how the episode's going to end. If it's a half-hour show or even an hour-long show, you don't know how the episode's going to end. It's kind of like, you know what? It reminds me of a skit from a Logic album where, he has this robot system was part of a lot of his albums. That's similar to the Midnight Marauders, A Tribe Called Quest recordings. And the robot says, what does it say? recording a single is like making a trailer for a movie that you have yet to shoot. I almost feel like grading a team's draft first round pick and then therefore grading their draft before we've seen even at least the first 3 rounds occur feels like we're like making assumptions about a situation where we have no idea what's going to happen. Like I don't know. I would prefer there was more. Make it 2 rounds. I don't know. Maybe that's a little too late in the night. They feel like it'll take forever. Make it 2 rounds. I feel a lot better. I just think that having only one round, not enough for me. Not enough for me. One thing the only thing I dislike about how the NFL draft setup currently is. This guy Rob DeRay. Your boys Tyrion Lannister arms are still pretty scary if I have to spend a premium pick on him. Yeah, he's talking about my guy Ruben Bain. Somebody's got to break the mold, though. That's the way I look at it. I think that somebody's going to break the mold. It can't be that everybody that has a arm length less than like 32 or 31 inches, whatever it is, that every guy is going to be terrible for the rest of eternity. I just don't think that that's possible. I'm not saying that it's not clearly a factor in what makes, guys star players and guys scrubs. Like it clearly is, just like there are measurables in the NBA that we look at. Maybe not something as fine-tuned as we do look at arm length, but not something as fine-tuned as like, oh, if guys are this level arm length, they can't be good. But yeah, if you're a 6'2" point shooting guard, you might have problems in the NBA, right? Like we know the things in any sport, the measurables that can certainly hinder a guy's chances of being great. I feel like I would have seen more on tape from him where arm length was a problem that I would have said, okay, I see it here. Yeah, oh yeah, now I get why he was great. He got around it in college, but the NFL's going to be different. I didn't see that, man. The guy's hands are so damn strong. I know a lot of strong guys in the NFL, but he plays with a force that I think is just different. So I would bet it. I'd bet the house that he's going to be a really good NFL pro. But I know it's scary for people, and where he ends up going, I think is going to be definitely, again, one of the huge stories of this draft. Like, will someone take a risk on him with this thing being a problem? This idea that he has these, tiny arms, and guys with short arms at his position typically don't become star players. It just is what it is. ZJ here, man. Excited to do this show. Draft is tomorrow. That's why I had to make sure I hopped on again. For those who are like, wait a minute, where were you on Tuesday? Tuesday was my birthday. So Tuesday, there's a reason why there was not a 40 Days of Counting show. It had nothing to do with anything involving me not wanting to do it or forgetting or anything like that. The only thing I forgot was I wanted to send a message out on my social media. Like, hey, there's no show tonight because it's my birthday. I actually recorded an episode of Orange and Blue Blood, so it's not like there's no content. There is content on New Generation Media. And if you search Orange and Blue Blood, you want to find the latest episode where I go more in depth on the Knicks' loss to the Hawks in Game 2. You can check that out on searching Orange and Blue Bloods. It's not on our New Generation Podcast Network. That is a separate feed. So search Orange and Blue Bloods if you want to catch that episode where I broke down the Knicks' loss to the Hawks in Game 2. But yeah, I didn't. It was it was my birthday, and of course my fiance had a dinner plan, a day plans, and as I kind of came up to the day, I realized, oh shoot, like I'm supposed to do a show today. I guess I can't do it, and I meant to send a message out. Nothing got sent out, and by the time I remembered, I was like, it was past 7 o'clock. I was like, I don't think it makes sense to right now. Hey, by the way, I'm not doing a show tonight. So, but I was like, I want to make sure I get something out there. I want to talk to the people. I want to give them my thoughts on what's been going on with the NBA playoffs, because a lot's happened since Friday and the NFL draft. So I wanted to make sure I got in front of you guys. I'm happy I'm doing this show. I'm happy I'm here rocking with you guys here on 40 Days and Counting. We're going to keep it moving, though. I want to talk about some other stuff happened in the NFL that been a story, no question about it. This Mike Vrabel situation and the fallout from what happened with him and Dianna Russini continues. As I record, or not recording, we're doing this live. We are recording, but it's also live, obviously. More pictures came out I saw from the New York Post showing Dianna Russini with Mike Vrabel at this adult-only Arizona resort. It seemed like they were having breakfast, was the description. The picture, Mike Vrabel is not very focused in the picture. Like, he's actually kind of cut off. So I'm not even 100% sure it was him. It does look like him, but I'm not 100% sure. You only see like a quarter of his face. Obviously, Diana's there. You can see it's her. So they were having breakfast together. Apparently, also, there was no one else there. It was just them having breakfast. Again, I don't know what happened. But I do want you to hear from Mike Vrabel, because we've been kind of wondering what this guy was going to say when we finally got to hear from him. And now we're getting to hear from him. And I've actually, the one thing I will say about this story is I've been a little surprised. I guess, I don't want to say pleasantly surprised, because I don't have a dog really in the fight. But I've been surprised by just how much people have been suggesting that this was going to be a problem for Mike Vrabel in the locker room. I guess we just hear so much when we talk about what happens with NFL coaches, NFL figures, and this idea that, listen, these guys would run over your grandma to win a football game, and, like, they're not the most moral people, and, like, we just have this acceptance of that. I kind of assume, forget about the fans, I kind of assume that within NFL circles, they will look at it the same way. They're like, oh, well, listen, he's winning football games, I don't care what he's doing. But that apparently wasn't the case. And it's funny, I actually talked to my brother about this, who's been in NFL locker rooms, and he kind of felt the same way. He's like, NFL head coach, he is kind of a moral compass of the team. He is, like, he's telling his players to do this, do that, be responsible, don't get in trouble, be honorable. He's telling them to do all these things, and if he is flying in the face of that, like, it can be a problem. So Mike Vrabel made his opening statement where he spoke about admitting that he did have to have some, what he called, quote, difficult conversations.
I've had some difficult conversations with people that I care about, with my family, the organization, the coaches, the players. Those have been positive and productive. We believe in order to be successful on and off the field, you have to make good decisions. That includes me. That starts with me. We never want our actions to negatively affect the team. We never want to be the cause of a distraction. And those are comments and questions that I've answered for the team and with the team. We'll keep those private and, to ourselves.
That does not sound like somebody who was involved in something that was innocuous and not what people were saying it is. Just calling it like it is. I'm not saying that that's not the case. I'm just telling you that that's not the statement I would expect. In fact, it wasn't the statement he gave to the New York Post. When the initial photos came out, if you remember, Mike Vrabel, him and Dianna Russini were, like, defiant in their statements to the press, where they basically were like, these are just, like, photos that are just playful interactions, and you'd be a fool to think that anything was going on based on these photos, which I thought laid it on a little thick, because I thought maybe you could explain away the hug. I thought the finger interlocking thing was just weird, and just didn't seem like something that people who are not involved in anything romantically would do. But again, maybe if there was an explanation of why they did it, maybe that would make sense, but there wasn't. I thought it was laid on a little thick, but he was defiant in that New York Post. He was like, this is like, again, he said basically, you're an idiot if you think this is anything more than just two colleagues and who are friendly together. That didn't sound like that. He's talking about people gotta make good decisions, and that includes me, and difficult conversations. If it's a conversation, what would make the conversation difficult if nothing happened? You talk to your team and say, hey, listen, I'm sorry, this is an awkward thing, but I didn't do anything with this woman, so, I'm sorry for the distraction, but this is going to be fine. You tell your family the same thing. Hey, listen, like, I know it looks weird, promise it wasn't anything crazy. Maybe I shouldn't have, I'm sure with his wife, maybe he said, hey, maybe I shouldn't have interlocked fingers. Maybe he said, hey, that was a bad idea, but trust me, nothing happened. Like, it was all good. I can't imagine those conversations being difficult. And if you looked at his face and you kind of, we've seen enough of these statements coming from, sports figures or public figures, just any public figure, when they've been embroiled in something that has been kind of embarrassing and has maybe made family life difficult. And you kind of know the vibe for someone who has definitely found themselves in a little bit of trouble in that stage, in that environment. We've seen, Tiger Woods press conferences and others. I hate to name Tiger because I probably should. Whatever, I did it already. But Tiger and others who have had these scandals, again, any politician you want to name, go ahead. Bill Clinton, I don't know. We've seen their disposition. He kind of had the same thing. Like, for like guys who have had some guilt, some level of guilt behind them, behind some kind of misconduct. That was kind of the vibe I got. Now, it could be like it again. It could be that nothing happened, but he just was embarrassed, and that just was the vibe he gave off. But he just didn't give off the vibe of somebody who was innocent in all this, and a guy who did nothing wrong. He gave off the vibe of somebody who knows they did something wrong and knows that they have to mend fences. Like they have work to do. Like the fact that he had to talk to his team and he had to tell them about it. He said one of the main reasons he didn't say anything was because he wanted to make sure he talked to his team before he talked to anybody else about this. And that the details he shared with his team or more private that he won't discuss with the media. Tell me there's a lot more to this than what I'm gonna just put him in. I don't know can't speak for Dianna, but what he at least was saying, seems like there was a lot more to this than what met the eye, or at the very least what he tried to say initially when he tried to just go scorch earth on the New York Post when this was presented. Clearly, he's singing a different tune. I don't know if maybe because he realized, hey, more pictures could be coming out about this situation, and therefore, I got to change my tune because, again, more pictures came out today. Again, I don't think they were any worse than the ones from before, but they, again, speak to now multiple interactions, right? He's in a whole different, Diana's in a whole different outfit, so, like, it's not the same day, it's a different day, so now we've seen outfit changes, we've seen one of them shirtless, like, we've seen, there's a lot of hanging out between these two, so, yeah, it just was a very different statement. This was a statement he said earlier. I want to make sure I pulled it up. He said to the New York Post, this photo showed a, quote, completely innocent interaction, and any session otherwise is laughable. I'm sorry. There was no laughing by Mike Vrabel and no smile, crack, nothing in that statement that he made yesterday. He was dead serious. Dead serious. And someone asked him about that. He was asked, hey, do you still stand by your statement that this was an innocent interaction and any suggestion otherwise is laughable? And his quote was, I appreciate the question. I'm going to focus on our football team. I think I addressed what I felt like was important. Again, why wouldn't you stand by saying that this was completely innocent? And I'm just telling you what it looks like. I'm telling you what this sounds like. It sounds like a guy who messed up. That's how he sounds. If he didn't, then I would talk to the Patriots or talk to whoever his crisis, if he has a crisis team. I know that Diana's reportedly hired a team, a crisis management team, or whoever's advising him. I talked to him about this. Say, hey, is this the message you want to give out? Do you gotta know how this looks? This looks like someone who has at least some level of guilt. I don't think there's a level of guilt that is warranted if this was innocent interactions where there are a bunch of friends together and they just happen to hang out for a little bit. Doesn't feel like, yeah, or I don't know. Something went down. Something went down. I don't know what. I don't know if he was dishonest with where he was with his wife. I don't know what happened, but clearly there's a disconnect from what has remained kind of a defiant stance from Dianna, which has been like basically, again, she resigned, and the reasoning was, I'm resigning because I refuse to allow this narrative to continue. Because it's a narrative I reject, which also had kind of its questions raised. Is like, all right, well, if it's a narrative that you reject, then why are you resigning? But okay, whatever. That was her decision. Now with this feels the total opposite, where this is not defiant. This is very much a humbling response, a humbled response from Mike Vrabel. And I am, I think this is probably enough for his side, I think, to put it to bed, unless something, the fact that more photos and stuff keep coming out, it just makes me worry that perhaps something more could come out of this. Again, maybe that is why he's walking this line. And maybe he's afraid. He also could be like, oh, I don't know what they have, so I'm just going to be as, apologetic as possible, or as, contrite as possible. But it does, I am curious, what this does for him in terms of, does this remain a story for the Patriots and for their orbit? I don't think he faces any league discipline. I know there's been a lot of conversation about that. I'll just comment on that one time again, which I talked about a couple weeks ago when Dianna had resigned. Or maybe it was last week, whenever it was. But, like, I still don't see really any way in which he should be disciplined for this. I'm sorry. Like, and I know, like, for a lot of women, they've talked a lot about and I respect it. Like, I respect everybody's perspective on it, especially the women, media members, media reporters, for sure. And like a lot of them talking about, there's always this, double standard when it comes to men and women alleged improprieties or misconduct when it comes to sexual situations, and that is accurate. There's no denying that. It's a fact that there is one. And I'm not even denying that there isn't one now, in terms of at least the perception of who is perceived to be the bad guy, who's perceived to be innocent or anything like that. I think, women wear it when it comes to this kind of interaction. Again, I talked about that last week after Dianna resigned, and it sucks. And that's just again, that's the patriarchy, that's misogyny, that's like something rooted into our American culture, and then just culture period, not just America. But I just think that can be put to the side and not acknowledged. Okay, yes, that has happened. That is true, but then also the reality of what their roles are, and Mike Vrabel's role is just not to be ethical. It's just there's nothing ethical about being an NFL head coach. Like, in fact, it may be one of the most non-ethical things you could do in professional sports is being an NFL head coach. You have to lie all the time. You got to cut people who you promised to maybe keep on your roster. Like, you got to trade guys. Like, it is like my friend Andrew Perloff says. A coach is speaking is lying when they're moving their lips. Like, that is the nature of the business. His job is not to be ethical. His job is to win football games. Mike Vrabel wins football games. He took them to the Super Bowl last year. His job also is not to bring embarrassment to the organization, which he has with this. So, I mean, if they, we want to fine him or something like that, conduct detrimental, something like that, I can certainly see that. But again, as long as the level of embarrassment doesn't supersede his ability to win football games, which it just doesn't with this case, then I don't see what you do with him. I think it's a guy who made potentially, if all this is true, only if all this is true, I'm saying this, potentially made a really dumb mistake and maybe ruined his family life. And we'll go on from here and see if he can still coach a team at a high level without that life that he had or whatever. But that's his problem. That's his personal issue. That's not an issue really for the team unless they start losing. Which is why I go back to my original point, which I am fascinated how those conversations went with his players, because I've heard a lot of people say in the NFL circles that this is not going to be just oh, okay, cool, coach, hey, man, go get him, we're happy. Like, no, I think a lot of guys are going to be like, yo, bro. Think about, Stephon Diggs is not on the team anymore, but, like, he was pretty strong-worded multiple times about Stephon Diggs' conduct in the offseason last year and about making good decisions. And that was him, having, I know the pink powder he was giving out to those women, on that yacht that became infamous. But, like, talking about making good decisions and stuff, like, he was with his girlfriend. He was with his people who actually he was in relationships with. He wasn't hiding or trying to hide his relationships, or maybe, that what they gave you. You shouldn't be giving out drugs to people allegedly or anything like that. But, like, you think about how strong-worded he was when it came to talking about Stephon Diggs and what he may have said about other players or what he probably relates to his team. I think I kind of understand it now, that you could look at Coach sideways, who then is, doing this kind of thing that's creating this massive distraction for the team. Luckily enough, it's so early in the season. It's not even the season. It's literally the off-season. It's so deep into the off-season. I think there's a chance that this does die down, assuming there's not some really, really salacious smoking gun that we don't see. I'm hoping to God there isn't. I don't want to see anything like that. But I think this eventually will die down. But I will be fascinated to hear more stories moving forward about how much does this wear on the team. The story now that the Patriots are expected to make a trade for A.J. Brown, basically as soon as June 1st hits, so the salary number goes down, or the salary cap penalty for the Eagles goes down, so they can make that trade and make it happen. That was Adam Schefter reported. We know Dianna Russini was very much on the A.J. Brown trade talk. She was very much reporting that story out and was talking about the link between the Patriots and the Eagles when it comes to the A.J. Brown trade. Does a trade for A.J. Brown kind of put a lot of this to the side? And now we're talking more about this Patriots team adding a star wide receiver and it becomes a bigger story about just who they are as a team, or because it's AJ Brown, because it's the reporting that Dianna had been, focused on for, I don't want to say focused on, but had been, spearheading for a large portion of that early offseason part. Does that become part of it? It was like, oh, AJ Brown's here. Well, guess who the first one who was saying this could happen? And then does that create even more distractions? All these things I think are going to be interesting to follow when it comes to the situation with Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots. Surprised to hear about this one. So, we are nowhere near the end of any kind of deadline for the Cowboys to come up with a new contract for George Pickens. In fact, we've seen them go until the day before or like hours before their first game of the season to sign Dak Prescott, who was on a franchise tag, to a massive long-term deal that is probably crippling the team right now. So the Cowboys have been known to play this thing right up to the end when it comes to signing guys to long-term deals potentially, or at least negotiating them out. And George Pickens was handed the franchise tag last month, and I think for a lot of people it was like, okay, he's given the franchise tag, but they talked about it, during various different times, because Steven and Jerry speak all the time. Where, oh yeah, he has the franchise tag, but hey, we could negotiate with him. Like, we could have come up with a deal, and we can see something happens here. Now, Stephen Jones is saying that nothing's going to happen. Nothing is going to happen. They've already decided that they're going to move forward with George Pickens on the franchise tag. So here is Stephen Jones today speaking about the decision that they've already made to allow George Pickens to move forward without a long-term deal.
We're going to have George play under the franchise tag, which won't be a first for us. So there won't be negotiations on a long-term deal. But that's certainly not a first for this organization, and certainly won't be a first in the league in terms of, this decision as we move forward. But whether it's Dak Prescott, who played under one and got tagged a second time, whether it's D-Law, whether it's Tony Pollard, we've certainly had those situations.
Yeah, I mean, it has happened where they've had guys playing on the tag, no question. I think the peculiar nature of it is, again, I think the expectation, because what they said was we're giving him the tag, but we're very open to negotiating a deal with George Pickens to keep him here long term. And now that's not the case, and now we're going to go into this season with George Pickens playing on the franchise tag with no chance of signing a long-term deal. According to ESPN here, the last time the Cowboys signed a player tagged for the first time to an extension was Dez Bryant in 2015. So for guys that have, as the article points out, and as you heard from Stephen Jones, if it's their first time getting that franchise tag, they most of the time they just keep it. What is interesting though is this is, of course, George Pickens, who's represented by who? David Mulugeta. You don't know who David Mulugeta is? He is the agent for George Pickens, who was also the agent for Micah Parsons. And I can't help but wonder if somehow what happened with Micah Parsons last year is not influencing potentially what is now also going on with George Pickens. Because if we know anything about the situation with Micah Parsons last year, it became extremely contentious because of Jerry Jones allegedly coming to what he thought were kind of like loose terms of an agreement with Micah Parsons without the presence of his agent there to negotiate it. Like, he invited him over to his house and he kind of talked about some loose terms, and I don't know if Micah Parsons said, oh yeah, that's good for me, I'll take it, and that was it, and that was foolish of him to do that without his agent, or if Jerry Jones had to misunderstand him because he's 150 years old. Probably was mean, but you know what I mean, right? Like, who knows what Jerry Jones and what's going on in his head and what he thinks happened and what the truth actually is. But either way, it created this Cold War between the Cowboys and Jerry Jones and Micah Parsons and David Mulugeta, who had been dissed by Jerry Jones multiple times, where he talked about how, like, I don't know this guy's name, and like, I've done deals without talking to agents. Like, he started like kind of like stunning in his face, and we know how that ended. It ended with Micah Parsons being a Green Bay Packer. So with this going this way, where you would think that for the Cowboys, if you could get I don't know if you're going to get a bargain, but to not even want to negotiate feels weird. Like you wouldn't even try. It's April 22nd. Training camp is not until July. Like you got plenty of time to see if you can come up with something. You're basically saying nope, just play on the $27 million tag. And to be honest, I'm not even offended by the idea that they want to play him on the tag. Like George Pickens can be a hothead. George Pickens at times has not shown a level of maturity that's becoming of a superstar wide receiver. So I could understand the Cowboys or any team seeing one year of really good production, his best season as a pro by far, and wondering, I kind of want to see him do it again before I give him a bunch of money. Like, can he once again be a good teammate? Can he once again be a highly productive player? Can he do what he didn't do last year, which is show up in big games? Because there was the famous Detroit game when CD gets concussed and George Pickens is on a milk carton for the whole second half. There were a couple of those games down the stretch where it just seemed like his head was out of it, which again has been his MO. It's been the problem with him, is that as talented as he is, his head's not always in the game. I think this is one of those deals where I think you do wonder, did the Cowboys have the right idea but maybe wrong approach? Like, would they have been better off seeing if they come off to a real deal, but with maybe the understanding that maybe the best thing to do is to go to a franchise tag unless they got a great bargain? That'd be the question I have, because George Pickens, I don't know if he's the kind of guy that I'd want to sign long term, but I also don't know if he's the kind of guy that I want crowing about not getting money. So I think the chances of you seeing George Pickens at minicamp or these OTAs, I think is probably slim. He probably shows up for training camp, but again, the deal between this situation and what we had with Michael Parsons and Dave Mulligetta before, I'm just saying, man, look out below. This what could be a very could be a very simple negotiation or a simple situation. I just kind of wonder if this ends up becoming, something that is more contentious. Now, Stephen Jones said the conversation with Mulligetta, because they informed Mulligetta this was going to happen, was super cordial. But the Cowboys have no assurances Pickens will report for any of the offseason programs which start next week at the Star. So yeah, I don't think he's going to sign it. In order to participate, Pickens would have to sign the tender, which he has not done yet. I don't think he's going to sign it. I don't think you'll see him sign that thing until training camp. Which now, and we know the game that plays, or if he even starts playing around with not want to be at training camp, which is something he could do. Then we know that, you can say, well, let's get him on the field in week 1. That's not how this works when it comes to the guys getting their bodies ready, because you don't want to do training camp, you don't want to do OTAs, you don't want to do X, Y, and Z. You want to show up week 1, and then week 3, you're pulling up with a lane with a hamstring, and then that could just torpedo your entire season. These are the things that are definitely in play potentially with this injury, with the potential for injury if he does not take the right precautions when it comes to practicing and being a part of training camp and all those different things. That's the game of fire the Cowboys are playing with Pickens. We'll see. We'll see if this is the right strategy, because they did the whole song and dance of maybe trying to get a contract, not getting a contract with Parsons, and that blew up in their face, negotiating it through. So maybe this is a different approach where they say, listen, let's just say off rip, we're not paying you, bro. Like, you're going to play on this tag and that's it. And maybe they think that that's a more honest approach, and therefore, the player can then decide what he wants to decide. I guess my problem would be, is Pickens the kind of guy that will take this situation and still be a good soldier? Because it doesn't take a lot for me, from what I've seen from him, it doesn't take a lot for him to go sideways. So that would be, I think, a very fascinating thing to watch over there in Big D. Been a fun evening so far, man. Thank you guys for rocking with me tonight. Apologies for the technical difficulty, man. I'm really concerned about this thing with X. I don't know why X is not letting me stream. I gotta maybe look at that after the show. But I'm glad I was able to do this show so far. Yeah, 40 days counting. Your boy EJ Stewart. Streaming live, multiple spots. Streaming live on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, Generation Media, of course, it's the channel. Make sure you subscribe it there. Make sure you also follow me on Instagram, Actually EJ, where we're also live. I gave my Instagram people a little shout out in the chat, so hope you guys enjoyed that. Who have we had? We had a lot of people show up on Instagram today. We had Rob, who was there. Now he's migrated over to YouTube. We have my guy Nick Theodoro. Shout out to Nick. Shout out to Big Friendly. Good to see Big Friendly in here. My dad was in there. Hey, Dad, happy birthday. I know I've said happy birthday to you probably like 10 times from this weekend to now. But me and my dad share the same birthday. It's a little fun fact for those who don't know. Me and my dad both have a same birthday. So not date, day. So April 21st, both our birthdays. So happy birthday to him. Javon29574. Shout out to him. Matthew Webb joined as well. Shout out to him. Shout out to Jay also. Shout out to Jay and Andy, my good friend Andy from Hunter College, also jumped in. So shout out to you guys on the Instagram live chat. I can never tell. It doesn't tell me who the YouTube people are, but I can always see who my Instagram people are. So shout out to you guys for giving me a look throughout this show. It's been a lot of fun so far. Last thing we do, man, before we get out of here, I want to talk about this Clayface trailer. So DC kind of in a weird spot because they've had so much momentum, and they do have Supergirl coming out in June, which I'm really excited about. But it does feel like momentum is starting to shift back over to Marvel, and it's hard. Sometimes you feel weird making it a competition. At the end of the day, I think it's important if you love superhero content for all of these shows to be really good, or movies to be really good. So I think we should be rooting for everybody to be good. But when it comes to Clayface, I think the momentum's been shifted to Marvel because of the excitement with Doomsday. I think everyone is locked into what is going to happen with Robert Downey playing Doctor Doom and the promo for it. There was a trailer last week that we talked about. And DC, despite what I think was a Superman movie that got a lot of rave reviews, feels like DC's kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern right now because Supergirl hasn't come out yet. The next movie that we have outside of Clayface is Superman, but that's next year. That's going to be Man of Tomorrow. It's going to be a sequel to the first Superman movie. No Batman on the horizon. Lanterns has not been received well when it comes to the trailers. Now, we haven't seen any show yet, but the trailers people did not like. So, I feel like DC is in a little bit of a rut. At least a little bit of a holding pattern is the best way to put it. What I will say is they did come out with this Clayface trailer. It's weird seeing it because, like, I watched it and I'm like, watching it makes me kind of understand why they're doing this. But at the same time, I think it makes me more feel stronger that I wish they didn't do this. So, the trailer, which shows, the character, Clayface, who is, a former actor who has basically, his life destroyed when he gets beat up by some gangsters. And his face is disfigured, and he tries to fix his face by going through surgery that kind of makes him this clay monster type character, and it's one that he can't really control, and he eventually becomes the villain that is Clayface of Batman in the DC Gotham world. I will say this is definitely a horror movie. Like Tom Reese Harris is gonna play Clayface, playing Matt Hagen. Again, he's an actor who's transformed into being made of clay. Naomi Ackie is going to play the doctor, who's a friend scientist who's going to be the love interest of someone who's going to try to fix him. And that's really all we know much about this movie. The trailer is definitely horror themed. I mean, that's why I feel like I understood why this trailer was made or movie was made. Because I know we kind of pointed to like Marvel saying, oh, like our first venture into horror is going to be Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And in many ways, there are horror elements to it. But I don't think they really quite leaned into it being a horror movie, at least in the promotion, the way they probably could have once you actually see the film. This movie is a horror movie. Like, it's very clear. Like, it's scary. It's violent. Like, even for a non-Red Band trailer, there are scenes and things you see that are just very uncomfortable. The first shots is just him with his disfigured face after being beat up, I guess, by these gangsters, and it's grotesque. So I think this is like maybe Warner Brothers saying, hey, we have an opportunity here to like maybe find a lane that is popular. Like, people love horror movies. Like, I know it maybe doesn't do like the huge numbers that blockbuster summer movies do, but it's a genre. It's a fixed genre that has its fans. And I guess the question I have is, will they be able to tap into that fan base? One that does have some crossovers for sure to superhero movies, but it's also just a kind of it's a audience of its own. Like, it's its own thing. It doesn't care about A lot of them don't care about anything happening with DC or Marvel, superheroes, anything like that. That's not their jam. Like, there's a lot of women who maybe aren't into comics that are into horror movies in that way. Like, I'll be curious if they will be able to tap into that audience, number one. And if they are, how much of the maybe traditional superhero fan may be turned off by this and say, okay, I know this is a DC branded property, but I don't really care about a horror movie. Because I'll be honest, I tell people, horror is like my least favorite genre of movie. Like, I don't like horror. I'm sorry. I don't like gore. I also find horror movies to be a little predictable. I will be honest, though, I did like the Jordan Peele movies, you know, Up and certainly Get Out. Those are, I think, two awesome movies, and I know there's a lot of horror themes in there. But horror is not my jam. It just never has been. Again, I don't like gore. I find them predictable. I don't like them. Nothing against anybody who likes horror movies. They're just not for me. So I saw this trailer, and I really questioned whether or not I'm gonna see this movie. Like, and that's I almost never say that for any superhero movie. But I sat there, I'm like, am I really gonna see this? Like, I probably will, just for the sake of understanding the world is being built, because this is going to be, I believe, in the DCEU, like, or in the DCU rather, this universe that James Gunn is creating. Like, Clayface is a part of it. So if I want to know anything about Gotham City or anything about Batman, like, this is your first chance, I think. So I might not have a choice, I guess, because of that. But would I see this in any other context? Definitely not. So I'm actually curious what's going to happen with this in terms of a marketing standpoint, in terms of a box office standpoint. Like, is it worth it? Is it worth it for them to try to reach out to an audience that I think will probably, if they see the trailer, I think would be intrigued, because it definitely hits those themes. But will they then say, oh, DC movie? I don't know if I want to see that. Like, I'll be curious about that. I don't know. I think Marvel behind the scenes and with the reporting was pushing, oh, Doctor Strange is a horror movie. And then when push came to shove, they lightened the load when it came to pushing it as a horror movie. Someone in some office in Burbank, California told them, it's not going to play well for the numbers we want to do for this movie to make this all about it being a horror. And they shifted. Again, the actual movie does play in some ways with some horror themes. And I actually love that movie, by the way. But they definitely pumped the brakes on what was a long, I won't say media campaign, because it wasn't a campaign yet, but the kind of first discussions about what the movie was about, they pushed horror, and then they pulled away from that. It had to be for a reason. This movie is inescapable. You cannot push away from this being a horror movie. So I'll be fascinated to see how this movie does in terms of reception, in terms of box office, and I'm curious if it's good. I'll be curious if it's good. Again, I'm going to give it a shot, because I got no choice. This is what I do for, can't say for a living, but I do it for pleasure and for content, is comment on all these shows and movies. So I will watch it, but I did watch, I sit there, man, do I really got to watch this? Like, I don't want to watch this. Like, it's disturbing. Like, and to be honest, like, I guess that means they did a good job, because like Clayface is in theory like he's a disturbing character. What happens to him is tragic, and it's messed up, and it feels like they're really leaning into that. So I'm really curious about how that movie ends up shaking out. But the trailer's out. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. I'd be very curious. Maybe next time when I'm on Friday morning, get in the comment section. Let me know what you think about the Clayface trailer. If you've watched it already, comment now. I'll be on here a little bit. I want to answer some of these chat things. I haven't been on the chat as much today. But I'm actually really curious about what ends up happening with Clayface after that trailer, because I was like, wow, this is a horror movie, not something. I thought it would be like scary, but I was like, oh, this is really scary. This is really scary. So excited to see what that happens. That comes out October 23rd. It's going to be Clayface happening later this year. Before I get out of here, I just want to get back into the chat, see what you guys got to say. Let's see what we got here. Running up here. Rob Ray, I think that they could get a late first for Pickens, trade him, and draft Lemon Tate at 12. This isn't hard unless there are no suitors for Pickens. Interesting. I probably would agree. I guess for the Cowboys, though, the question would be, do you feel like for a team that is definitely, I mean, they're definitely a win-now team, that you can argue if they're good or not, but they're definitely a win-now team. It's not a rebuilding team or a team with some long future. Is it worth it to take the risk of putting in a rookie who, I don't know if he's as good as George Pickens next year. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but George Pickens had a great year last year. Like, taking a step back with a rookie, though you may be able to, again, prove your team by getting another first and then maybe helping the defense, which is terrible. Is it worth it to help the defense with an extra pick and maybe take a little bit of a step back at receiver for a team that needs to win now? It's interesting. I'll tell you one thing. I wonder if them saying this the night before the draft is why this is happening. I think you perk my ears to something that I didn't really think about. The timing of this, to have this and say, oh, by the way, everybody in the NFL, we are not signing George Pickens to a long-term deal. Is that the way? And we know Jerry Jones said that, oh, the stuff I was saying, I was playing four-dimensional chess with Michael Parsons because I knew I was going to trade the whole time, which I don't know if that was true. But is this their way of playing four-dimensional chess, by trying to say out there, we're not signing Pickens long-term, which means you could trade for him if you give us the right piece? It is interesting to say for sure. I feel like Pickens would have suitors, though. He was too good, I think, for somebody, one of these teams that's right on the cusp, not to say, hey, let's take a flyer on him, I think. Bob Custer in the chat. Good to see Bob here. Yo, EJ, yeah, Lakers are shocked for people. The Lakers of shocked a few people, huh? I guess have shocked a few people, probably what you meant to say. Yeah, I'm stunned by what happened. I'll be honest. It's rare things completely shock me in the NBA at this point in my life. I'm shocked the Lakers are up 2-0. There's no way I would have had. I don't care if those games were at home. I did not think that. They've looked so ass in those last few games without Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. I didn't think there was any chance that they were going to be up 2-0 headed to Houston. So they have shocked me and a lot of people where they're at. And Houston's going to have a lot of tough questions to answer if they don't figure out a way to get this series back 2-2 going to LA. Bob Custer also in the chat. The problem isn't with George Pickens. The problem is the Cowboys with incompetent and cheapskate management. Well, the problem, the actual problem is, it's not about necessarily. There is an issue with, like, they don't give out a lot of cash. Like, they always have, like, the cash rankings. Like, everybody has the same salary cap, but actually how much money you're giving to certain people that year, not every team has the same number. So it's kind of like phony baloney money in many senses. And the Patriots actually were a team that was, like, criticized for that a lot because they were, like, at the cap, but, like, the actual money being spent on players was low, which is why their roster was so bad. The Cowboys have also been in that situation where they also have been a team that hasn't actually given out a lot of cash in various different years. They have guys on certain cap numbers because maybe they gave them a signing bonus, but then the rest of them salary was low. They weren't paying guys year to year. Cowboys have also been in that situation too. So in some senses, yeah, it's a little cheapskate stuff. But I think the bigger issue has been more like just like roster management. Like for a team that doesn't have that much talent, I don't know why they're capped out. And every time I go over the cap and look at the numbers, it still doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, wait a minute. So you got all these guys making, in terms of their salary numbers, double-digit money. Osa, Quinnen Williams, who they got to resign, Dak, CD, Ferguson now, like all these guys with these double-digit salary numbers. I'm like, well, why is the team so bad? Like you don't like they probably are investing in guys that aren't good enough to make up for all the issues that they have. So I don't know if it's necessarily cheapskate. I think it's the first part. I think the incompetent part is more the problem with the Cowboys, rather than them being cheap. But being cheap has been a problem. That has not been a problem at all. But it's been the bigger issue. I think has been the fact that they're incompetent, which is definitely a situation. Shout out to whoever EJ shouted out from Hunter College. You actually, Rob, you remember Andy Bellotti. You should at least. I think Andy was there when you were there, maybe briefly. Andy's good. Andy's good people. Shout out to Andy. He's a good guy. Rob DeRay, about 8% of the draft talk I needed tonight, buddy. Does that mean I did not enough draft talk, or you wanted more draft talk? I assume. I think I did a lot of draft talk tonight. I don't know what you're talking about. What else we got here? I'm running the gamut on these things here. Another comment from Bob here. Jared Jones' equity in his team has gone up faster than his team payroll by far. Lots of these billionaires are cheapskate fools. That part is true. I think my friend Maggie Gray was always right when she said that, Jerry Jones' Super Bowl was seeing that the Cowboys were the number one number one value team every year. That was when they knew that was their Super Bowl. That was not them actually winning a championship. But when he saw that, he knew that he did his job well. And if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, that's gotta suck because you're like, I want to see a championship. I don't care about us being the most value team. We don't care about that. Fine, I saw this funny comment here. EJ, this new microphone is very cool. It's actually my old one. So I switched back. I actually did it on a whim. I did it. I was appearing on another person's podcast. But I started going back to my blue microphone. Now this one I didn't get new cords. That's why I stopped using it for a while. But I switched back and it worked fine. And I just kept going to it. I usually wear my wireless mic. Sometimes I don't love the microphone being in the shot. So I kind of go back and forth about whether or not I like to have it there. So I decided to go back to it. And, you think it looks cool. That's great. Hope it's not too distracting for people. I always worry that it's distracting. That's why I don't really love using. That's why I like using my other mic. But I actually think I need to get some new lavaliers because the volume on those are kind of low. So decided to go back to the old school. This is the one. This is the mic this was like, it's not the first mic I used when I started podcasting, but this is the brand I used it when I first started podcasting, 10 years ago at this point now. So, but thanks for noticing. Spencer Seeks. What's up, Spencer? Mets. Yeah, they suck. They suck. I thought about putting them in the show, but I didn't because I was like, I don't know if there's enough time for me today to talk about the issues with the Mets. They lost again last night. Are they winning today? I have no idea because I've been focused on this show. I haven't been looking at the standings. The Mets are 7-16. They lost 11 in a row. Maybe it was 12 now. I don't even know at this point. But it's the worst. It's the worst story in sports right now. It's the worst. You want to talk about the most embarrassing franchise, the most embarrassing organization at this point in time? It's the New York Mets. They blew a game last night that they were leading. They gave up 5 unanswered runs to lose that game. They're winning right now, 2-1. Right now, Luis Roberts at the plate, running on first, 2 outs. That's what I see here in terms of what's happened in this game so far. Francisco Alvarez broke a 1-1 tie in the 4th inning with a double. Lindor on an infield single that scored Bichette in the 1st inning, and that's been the scoring for the Mets. A sacrifice from Caratini from the Twins is the Twins' only score. Yeah, the Mets are awful, and I don't know if or when they're going to get out of this thing, but there is a chance the season will be lost by the end of this month. That is possible. That is on the table. Because I do not buy this idea. There are some people who say this idea that they're you can't lose your season in the first month of the season. It's BS. Nonsense. It's one of the stupidest things. And they say it in basketball, too, and it's also stupid. It's not that your season is over, but you could certainly lose your season in the first month of the season in both the NBA and in Major League Baseball. The biggest example of that for both sports is, to me, the Kings this year in the NBA, and last year the Braves. Both those teams got off to, we've seen with kind of pseudo playoff contention expectations, got off to miserable starts, and the dissension, the frustration, the question marks that get built with those starts end up, you're not able to recover. And it takes, even though you got the whole season to recover, and again, some teams can, a lot of teams do. But you can certainly lose your season in the first month. And that is 100% in play for this Mets team. They can't hit, they can't field, and they can't run the bases. All things that was supposed to be better this year. Especially the defense and athleticism aspect of it. That's the part that's really frustrating. Is you had a president of baseball operations say that we needed to get rid of lifelong Mets like Pete Alonso and Brandon Nimmo for run prevention. And by doing so, we'd be a better defensive team and more athletic team. And then the team we have now can't play defense or run the field. And then don't even get me started on the offense, which is abysmal. It's just, it's. I've never seen a Mets run this bad. I know they've had another streaks as bad as this. I guess 04 I think was the last one, or 08, something like that. I know they've had this kind of long streak before. I'm just telling you, I don't remember it being like this. Maybe it was as bad, but it was. This is awful. They're a terrible team, and I don't think Mendy's gonna survive it. I really hope, and it's not anything against Mendy. I don't think he's the man for the job. I think he has issues where he doesn't. I just love once to see him really just like show some fight, show some energy. Like I mentioned this on the fan last weekend when I was on, and this guy wasn't a great manager at all. But this happens with all teams. It's typically like, when things aren't going well, a coach will just pick out a guy to get on. And it's not necessarily to just get on that guy, because the guy probably has been a problem, but also to kind of like wake up the team. To be like, hey man, hope all you guys see this. This is unacceptable. And I remember when Jerry Manuel took over for Willie Randolph, he picked Oliver Perez to be that guy. If you guys remember Oliver Perez, he was this left-handed starting pitcher for the Mets. He was talented, and at one point was looked at as a future superstar in Pittsburgh before he got jettisoned out of there. But he had trouble with focus. He had trouble with walking guys, and for a guy with his talent, there were too many games where he just didn't give the Mets enough, and it seemed like a guy, again, who just wasn't focused. And I remember Jerry Manuel, like, getting on his ass. I think he one time visited the mound and kind of, like, didn't take him out, just yelled at him. Like, yo, man, wake up. What the F are you doing? And Oliver Perez, the rest of that way, along with the pitching staff, I think that was Dan Werther, whatever his name was. I forgot his name. Dan Wharton, maybe? I forgot how to pronounce his name. He became the pitching coach, and he did a good job with Ollie, and he had a good year the rest of the way. Mets ended up still blowing the season in the last game of the season in Florida, but that was like that was like a sign of like a coach being like, hey, like there are guys here that are dragging ass, and I need to start getting some of these guys faces and waking guys up. I don't see Mendy doing that. Maybe he's doing that behind closed doors, but I'm waiting for that, and I don't see it. I don't see the fight. So I'm hoping that maybe another manager can come in and bring that energy. That might be what this team needs. It's not anything against Mendy, but just like a wake-up call to be like, hey, man, this is unacceptable. This is ridiculous. For this team, they have flaws. They certainly have flaws. They're not nearly as good as I thought they were. But there's no excuse for the team with this kind of talent to lose 11, 12 games in a row. That is insane. And it's start the year this way, even without Juan Soto for so much of this stretch. It's been embarrassing. It's been a terrible, terrible start to this year. Casey Stengel is looking up and shaking his head slowly. Listen, Casey Stengel lost a lot of games for the Mets too. So he won almost every game for the Yankees, it felt like. But yeah, I just think to watch this team play, any baseball manager, like this is pitiful. It's like they don't play a good brand of baseball. The approaches at the plate are awful. They swing at everything. It's so weird because they started the year with their approaches were so good at the plate, and it's just everything flipped. It's like Soto got hurt, and they left San Francisco, and they became an entirely different team. It's insane. It's really, really insane. Rod Ray, Mike looks cool. I'm glad you like the mic. Seems like the mic is a positive thing. I think it is a more powerful mic too, so I'll probably sound a little better. It was the main reason why I kept it. So okay, I thought it was I didn't think it improved the look, but you guys seem to like it, so maybe I'll keep it around. Bob Custer, in my opinion, the new microphone looks very professional. EJ, I appreciate that, Bob, really do. What other stuff we got in here before I get out of here? I think I'm gonna leave it there though. You guys are great, man. You guys are great in adding stuff to the chat tonight. I really appreciate that. And again, I know this is a weird one. Some of you guys probably came in late because you maybe logged on YouTube and like, what? EJ's up? It's Wednesday. Obviously, I wasn't on yesterday. I want to keep my thing. Like I know there's been some days I had my bachelor weekend, which was awesome, but I meant I missed a Friday, and then I had my birthday today. So I went that stretch on 40 days and 40 nights where I missed nothing, and then this stretch for 40 days of counting, I missed a couple. I don't want to make that a normal thing. I want to be consistent with this. So I said, listen, I couldn't do Tuesday. I don't want to not do anything and just wait till Friday. Let me get one in. I'll get you guys a show. And then Friday, 8 a.m., I'll be back. And then next Tuesday and Friday, we'll get back to what we've been doing throughout this stretch, man. But, man, this is fun. And I want to thank you guys also for rocking with me through some of the technical difficulties, too. Apologies to people on X. I don't know what happened. Maybe I got to, update my Ecamm Live. I don't know. I'll figure out what's going on there. But we'll figure that out. But I want to thank you guys for checking out 40 Days and Counting. All the folks that have been following me on X who couldn't see, make sure you stay with me there. We'll figure this out. Thanks to the folks on Instagram, Action EJ, where you're watching live. Thanks to the folks on YouTube, New Generation Media. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. Give us a like, give us a comment, and subscribe to the channel. That helps. If you're on Instagram, make sure you follow me there as well. And all these episodes get podcasted to our podcast channel. Just search New Generation Podcast Network wherever you listen to your podcast. give us a 5-star review and subscribe to that channel as well. I'm EJ Stewart now. Thank you guys so much again for checking us out. See you guys on Friday. Peace.